Good afternoon, everyone. Let's put some energy into it. Good afternoon, everyone. Are we excited? Okay, so I'll be moderating the first panel discussion for today, and it's building a sustainable learning culture. I have the privilege of introducing our panelists, and they'll be joining me up here very shortly. The first person I would love to introduce, our very first speaker, is Olajumoke Leniola Akindolore. I hope I got the pronunciation. Olajumoke has over a decade work experience in full spectrum of HR, and that covers operations, systems and strategy, corporate communications, wealth management, and business development. She's an HR consultant to C-suite executives, a corporate communications advisor, and DEI and B advocate. Her career spans over a variety of roles, like her current roles, National Vice Chair of the Pen Up HR Forum. She's the HR lead at Total Energies Nigeria, CPF Limited. If you're clapping, please do better. She's also the team lead communications at White Olive. Her experiences include HR business partner at HR Pensions, Phyllis Consulting Limited, and Diamond Securities. Olajumoke studied international relations in Covenant University. Any alumni say hi? Okay. And she has an investment foundation certification by CFA. She's a member of the Institute of Strategic Management Nigeria. And of course, she has certifications in PHRI from HRCI, ACIPM, and other certifications. Guess what? Guess what? This amazing lady is a gamer and the mother of 3 amazing boys. Please jam your hands together for Olajumoke Leniola Akindolore. Thank you. Good to have you with us. And up next is a gentleman. I wasn't sure how to go about the introduction, but I will do it nonetheless. Our next speaker, I'll be joining Olajumoke on stage, is the managing partner and CEO of Workforce Group, one of Africa's leading business and HR consulting firms. He has over 25 years of executive business leadership experience and a passion for unleashing people and organization performance and growth. I'm glad to tell you that this person I'm introducing has helped some of the most innovative, high-profile organizations on the continent achieve growth, even in the most challenging market. Ladies and gentlemen, please jam your hands together for Mr. Folusho Aribisala. Thank you. If you're clapping, do it better. And one interesting thing about his profile is the fact that his interests includes reading, traveling, photography, ICT, and sports. I'll be interested to know what club he supports very soon. All right, so I also have the honor of introducing yet another amazing professional, and of course, he goes by the name Adetunji Faith Afolabi. Is the Chief Operating Officer, MLDC, and Adetunji is a senior L&D executive with 14 years of corporate experience that encompasses banking, management consulting, and development practice. His current responsibilities involve the coordination of learning programs for the Nigerian microfinance subsector. If you're clapping, please do it better. As well as the management of funded capacity building programs in the Nigerian agricultural and microfinance sectors in Nigeria. Adetunji is responsible for the strategic leadership of all secretariat activities of the Nigerian microfinance platform. Ladies and gentlemen, please jam it together once again for Adetunji Faith Afolabi. Together, we'll be discussing in the next few minutes on how can we build a sustainable learning culture. Just before we get right into the discussions, you can note down your questions. We would have that room where we get questions from the audience. Please jam your hands together for me. All right, so let's do this. I think I'm okay here. You can hear me? Okay, so I'll ask Folusho first, and that's what's your club? This is off the record. Because I saw sports in there, so there has to be a club.
I'm currently clubless, actually. I'm shopping for a new club. My
for
club
the record.
I'm not sure I can take
another. He just denied his club, for the
record. Okay, so why are you clubless? Oh, Asna disappointed. Okay. Let's hear. Okay, so Olajumoke, I'm interested. If you're not working, what can we catch you doing?
Oh, it was in my profile. I play games. I have about 4 to 5 different game consoles at home.
Wow.
And yeah, so we're gamers. It's a house of gamers.
Interesting. Okay, and I would also direct the same question to Mr. Adetuji. So if you're not working, what can we catch you doing?
I think movies. You can catch me watching movies.
Watching movies. What was the last movie you watched? This is where I catch you.
Shantytown.
Shantytown. Okay.
I'm very Nigerian, you know.
All right. So we have a very interesting topic before us today: building a sustainable learning culture. So while I was thinking about it, a question kept coming to mind for me. At this point in time, and I'll direct this question to all the panel, so you just give us your thoughts around it. Why do you think it's important that organizations begin to pay attention to building a sustainable learning culture? I think I'll start off with Mr. Folusho.
Okay. I was hoping you'd start off with somebody else, but I'll take a shot at it. So if you step back and you look at the world of business now, we're in a rapid stage where things are changing quite rapidly. We're also moving into, if you analyze the most profitable, the biggest, the most successful companies, they are uniquely knowledge-driven, knowledge-based institutions. And the critical thing for those institutions that the key to their success is their ability to harness human knowledge and leverage it for value creation. Now, key to that is that for that to be sustained, there must be that ability to learn, unlearn, and adapt rapidly to that changing environment. So once you have that culture in place, it happens naturally. It is less enforced and driven. So the logic is being able to create an environment that attracts people that are interested in learning and making it easy, for them to plug in, be creative, add value, and of course enjoy succeeding within the organization. It's just an easy, logical, but it's really to the end itself. So it means to an end that the businesses need the brain power of those individuals, and learning is one of the easiest ways to unleash that. Not training, but learning.
Thank you very much, Jumoke.
Okay, just to add to that, every organization needs to have some sort of, and like he rightly said, learning culture, and that's because there's this quote, when you stop learning, you start. So it's important. It's the lifeblood of every business, because again, you want to be agile in the market. You want to be able to move. You want to be able to take advantage of the opportunities, and the only way you can do that is if you keep learning. And so there's also another HR quote that I really like when managers try to cut my learning budget. I say, okay, so what if we train them and they leave? But then what if we don't train them and they stay? It will be a problem. So learning and development.
If you're clapping, do it better.
Yes, it's the lifeblood of any business.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adetunji. What would you say to that?
Okay, for me, I think why your corporate strategy, just like the gentleman presented earlier, is what you want to do. I believe learning speaks to how do you want to get there, right? So for me, learning helps you get to where you're going faster than expected. When everybody knows what they're supposed to do, it helps you to move at very high speed to get to where you're going. So for me, learning is very critical and important for you to achieve your goal faster than imagined.
Thank you very much. Learning is very critical for you to achieve your goals faster. And in a world that is constantly changing and evolving, learning must take the front burner. Thank you so much. The next question I would love to ask. I mean, the way we learn has changed, really. I mean, COVID, who would have ever thought that we could have full-blown classes online? But here we are. Now, that would lead me to ask, and this is at Jumoke, really. What are some challenges that you feel organizations encounter in trying to build a sustainable learning culture?
Okay, I asked you to tell me all these questions before I come here, so I can do my research. Okay, but I will take
a practical perspective. What are those pushbacks? What are those challenges that you feel organizations encounter in trying to create that learning culture?
Okay, so I will take you from a couple of perspectives. The first one is the organizational culture in itself can either enhance or stand in the way of learning and development, sustainable learning and development. Any organization that will build a culture of learning has to be one that accepts two statements. Statement number one is, I don't know. Where an organization where it's okay to say I don't know, and an organization where it's okay to say I was wrong. Now, it's easy to say I don't know because you don't take responsibility for anything. But when you say I was wrong, it means that you're taking responsibility for something that didn't go right. And in an organization that those two things are enhanced, you will see that learning is openly encouraged because we're all learning together. We're all going on this journey. But when you have an organization where it's not acceptable to not know, then people start hiding their ignorance. And so what that does is people don't know, they don't want to acknowledge that they don't know, and everybody keeps running around making costly mistakes. So first things first is one of the major challenges that I have witnessed is the culture. When you have a culture where mistakes and learning is not encouraged, then of course you cannot build a learning culture there. So moving on. Second thing I've seen is budgets. So people always attribute learning and development.
You can see Mr. Felicia smiling.
People always attribute learning and development to training. But it's not. There's the 70-20-10 rule, where 70% is done on the job, 20% is done where? People were nodding. Right, from your peers and all that. And then 10% is what is actually the formal part of training. Now, when you look at that, learning has been, or information has been democratized. You can learn anywhere. On your laptop, on your system, on your phone, you can learn how to be a rocket scientist from where you're sitting. It doesn't have to be expensive. I think what we need to now do is start to curate the learning journey, because that's the only way we can make it sustainable. We had an organization of 10 people, everybody's off to Harvard. When we grow to 50, it's not realistic anymore. So we need to understand that learning and development is a journey, and we need to adjust, curate, and if we're cutting, then we are replacing. If we're removing, then we're substituting. So we need to curate a sustainable, financially sustainable learning culture, where learning is a mix of different things as opposed to one particular thing. So those are two that I have mentioned. And then the last thing I would say is the willingness on the part of the employees. Because I have seen a few times where you would say, we've come up with a training plan, it's a fabulous training, go, and then the employee is like, I'm not interested. So we need to build a system that encourages learning and development. So it's built into your performance management, it's built into your reward management system. When you build learning into all these things, it encourages, motivates, and enables your people to learn as much as possible. So when we say sustainability, something that goes into the future, and that's why I'm looking at it from these perspectives, from the culture, from the financial side, and from the motivation side as well.
Thank you very much, Jumoke. Please jam your hands together. That was brilliant. Okay, so I'll take you up, and that'll be Mr. Folusho, on the last statement she made, where employees are expected to take ownership of their own learning. You know, the popular saying goes that you can take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink water. So how can organizations encourage employees to take ownership of their own learning and development?
Thank you very much. I'll pick up on that and continue where she stopped. linking it to the learning culture as well. The reality is that you can't have a sustainable learning culture if there are certain components are not there. One is the leadership, and they must lead by example. There must be clear interest and investment in learning.
Can you permit me to, yes, just the mic.
Clear interest and investment in learning by the leadership. So what does that mean? It means that they support it, they fund it, they champion it, they show up to open programs, they're involved with it, they demand for evaluation from the learning unit as well to justify the investment they put in it. And I found out that I'm going to wear my hat as a CEO, doing this. When you are managing multiple requirements in a business, it's a lot easier when you have metrics and there's clarity in terms of what you're investing in. And that's usually where the challenge is. So one is that also maybe a change in mindset from learning and growth or learning and development to learning and performance. CEOs understand that better, that we are investing in learning so that we can get performance. That argument is a lot easier to sell. Growth is, development is a bit more difficult to measure and defend. But when you say that this is important, now you get the executive leadership buy-in. Once they are there, it's a lot easier to get people to fall in line. Now, with respect, then when you come down again, there are 3 people responsible for driving learning. The organization, which you can drive through the executive support, the line managers. So that's the next point as well. Line managers are most people's mentors, guidance, they define their JDs, they identify their gaps. You can never have people buying into learning. So whether you like it or not, the priorities of the line managers are directly or indirectly transferred to the people. So if the line manager encourages learning, emphasizes learning, spends time investing in training the people, that culture itself is reinforced. Doesn't call them out of training that, Juliet, your work is waiting for you in the office. What silly training are you doing? Takes time to evaluate them before the training, set expectations as to what they're going to do when they get back from the training, and provides feedback to them that on whether he or she has seen improvement over that period of time. And finally, the individual as well. But individual is a bit more complicated. We need to factor it into our hiring process. So if I sit down in front of a candidate and I want to see whether the candidate has a desire to learn, you ask them what programs have they done. I'm particularly interested in the ones that they finance themselves. If they've not done anything on Udemy with all the free training out there, I know that this person doesn't prioritize learning. I'm not a psychologist or their parent. I want people that can come in and quickly adapt to my culture and add value. I'm not going to go through all that stress. It's not easy to transform people. It's a novel task, but there are a lot of other things in front of you. So selection is key. Select them right, build that culture, get line managers involved, get executives involved, and of course, task people with their own development. And finally, on the people part, why do people learn? It's because they want to succeed. You need to connect learning. So develop clear learning paths, which I don't see in a lot of organizations, for each role, each career. Clearly, for me to function here, these are the proficiencies I need. That provides a clear guide for me up front what must be learned. And once that is there, except I choose not to succeed, it's a lot easier for me to take ownership of my career and drive that. Sorry for the long stories, but those 3.
Thank you. All right, so I would ask Mr. Adetunji, very interesting question. And this particularly concerns communities and networks within the organization. So how can organizations build learning communities and networks? How can organizations encourage or build learning communities and networks?
All right, thank you. I think just to take on with what Folusho said, we must develop competency framework, right? I think it's only about banking industry in Nigeria that has very clearly defined competency framework. Now, I think this needs to happen across sectors where we develop competency framework that can measure progression from one career level to the other. So it helps to know what learning paths I should take from, coming in as an executive trainee to, go all through the line and become the general manager in that company. So what are the necessary skills I need to, pick up along the line? That being said, I think it's also very important to also know that training is not learning. He mentioned that. And it's very important that this Mazim, I know that, a lot of us go to college we just went to college for teaching. We're just taught. But nobody becomes a certified medical doctor with the textbooks alone. You have to go through the practicals, right? That's why they usually say you learn a skill. You learn a skill. If you see somebody going through tailoring, fashion design, they have to practically learn that skill. So learning is about building competencies and skills. So if you see it that way, it will help us to map individuals in their career journey. Now, so what the role of network and community does, I remember way back in my days in banking, we were paired, right? If you come in as a marketing executive, you were paired with a senior manager who are well experienced in marketing. Then it begins to mentor you on how do you profile your customer, your pitch, your presentation before your client and all of that. But what you see these days is you send an IT person to a sales training program. You just said an IT person to say, of what use would that be, right? Because it's not aligning. So in building community, you must also encourage within the team. If I ask us now, how many networks do we have in our office? Maybe it's just HR WhatsApp group. We must embrace social learning, right? Yes, HR WhatsApp group. We must embrace social learning. Does the marketing team have a close connection, a close group where they talk? Do they have a close group with their group head involved in that kind of discussion? Something like this kind of conference can also help you to share idea and knowledge cross-sector-wise, right? So you learn from, another person from a different company. So in creating that kind of connection within the systems where the HR team have their own, close loop where they have interactive discussions, the marketing team has as well. The several other, specialized area within the system has a close connection where, that interaction can take place. Then, very importantly, I think I will put this on the table of HR. HR need to do a lot more, right? Rather than module learning and development with some other functions, right? I think we need to separate it clearly so that we create very holistic approach to addressing learning issues within the organization. So that network.
Right. Thank you very. Okay, thank you very much, Sadintuji, for that. So I'll go back to Jumoke. While you were speaking earlier, you had mentioned the 70-20-10. So how can organizations support informal and experiential learning as part of their overall learning culture? Of course, we have the structured, you go for the program, you do all of that, but how can organizations, support informal and experiential learning? You're smiling. You have a very practical example.
This is something that I think I have discussed on several different occasions and come away with several different views. So it's a deeply polarizing question for quite a lot of people, and I'll tell you why. But first, let me answer your question. To create or to support that type of setting or that type of learning, an organization needs to be social in itself. So what that means is that even though there's a lot of hierarchy and there's the grade levels and all that, you need to create room for social interactions. And I really like how Adetunji had put it to say that beyond your HR WhatsApp group, how many of you are on any other WhatsApp group for your company? So we start with things like knowledge sharing sessions where a lot of the expertise you need to grow your business, you have in-house. But because nobody is talking about it, most people have knowledge that they have not shared. I've seen people sit in meetings, critical meetings, and everybody is talking about, how do we solve this problem? And then the least expected person comes up with a brilliant idea. And you're wondering, where were you? Where have you been all our lives? You are the one we've been waiting for. So create opportunities for knowledge sharing. Entrench that in your system, and you will see how dramatically your organization can change. Because again, context is, I keep saying best practice is only best practice when it's what is best for your business. And so if you understand the organizational context, then whatever it is you've learned from outside, you can put it into that context and save everybody a lot of time by sharing that knowledge. So knowledge sharing sessions, very, very important. And then knowledge management systems as well. so that all that institutional knowledge that has been gained does not get filtered out once the person leaves the organization. But to come to the informal learning, we need to encourage social interactions. We need to fund membership of professional groups. Organizations need to be able to sponsor and support team members when you're going for CIPM. For me, I'm in HR. CIPM programs, my organization sponsors it. Because they know the importance of networking, learning, understanding what's going on, what are the trends in my sector. So in whatever sector you're in, what associations do you belong to? I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups, and those updates have even helped me shape the way that I advise in terms of strategic management of staff. Because again, these people are lobbying the federal government. So a good portion of time, they know policies before they come out. So you're able to get insights. So it makes you even look more proactive because you already know what's going to come. You're already putting things in place. So by the time it's announced by the federal government, people are wondering, how did you know? So as an individual, it's important for you. If you're not in any group, please join a professional group. It's very important. And then it's important for organizations to fund that as well. And then in the informal learning space as well, beyond the KSS, that's knowledge sharing sessions, beyond funding professional groups, as an organization, you also need to support people when they say that they need time to do these things. Yes, I know business managers are looking at me and just saying, how do we give them more time? We're already giving them a lot of time. But when you begin to show interest in my growth as an individual, I have realized that people will go above and beyond the terms of their contract. But if we stick to the letter of the law, they will treat your work with the letter of the law. I've worked with a lot of people who say, my job ends at 5, I'm sorry. I'm not going to have a conversation with you until tomorrow morning. While it's important for work-life balance, we all need to carry that idea of the work is not done until it's done. But the only way you can move from a contractual arrangement to a more covenantal arrangement is to show interest in my development as a person. So I think using those 3 tools, knowledge sharing, important, social or professional organizations, even outside your workplace, join 1 or 2. I'm not saying join 5 and 10 and then you go in every other week. And then also, show interest in individuals and give them time to actualize all these things. And we'll have a better work environment.
How can organizations encourage or build learning communities and networks?
All right, thank you. I think just to take on with what Folusho said, we must develop competency framework, right? I think it's only about banking industry in Nigeria that has very clearly defined competency framework. Now, I think this needs to happen across sectors where we develop competency framework that can measure progression from one career level to the other. So it helps to know what learning paths I should take from, coming in as an executive trainee to, go all through the line and become the general manager in that company. So what are the necessary skills I need to, pick up along the line? That being said, I think it's also very important to also know that training is not learning. He mentioned that. And it's very important that this man, I know that, a lot of us go to college we just went to college for teaching. We're just taught. But nobody becomes a certified medical doctor with the textbooks alone. You have to go through the practicals, right? That's why they usually say you learn a skill. You learn a skill. If you see somebody going through tailoring, fashion design, they have to practically learn that skill. So learning is about building competencies and skills. So if you see it that way, it will help us to map individuals in their career journey. Now, so what the role of network and community does, I remember way back in my days in banking, we were paired, right? If you come in as a marketing executive, you were paired with a senior manager who are well experienced in marketing. Then it begins to mentor you on how do you profile your customer, your pitch, your presentation before your client and all of that. But what you see these days is you send an IT person to a sales training program. You just said an IT person to say, of what use would that be, right? Because it's not aligning. So in building community, you must also encourage within the team. If I ask us now, how many networks do we have in our office? Maybe it's just HR WhatsApp group. We must embrace social learning, right? Yes, HR WhatsApp group, we must embrace social learning. Does the marketing team have a close connection, a close group where they talk? Do they have a close group with their group head involved in that kind of discussion? Something like this kind of conference can also help you to share idea and knowledge cross-sector wise, right? So you learn from, another person from a different company. So in creating that kind of connection within the systems where the HR team have their own, closed loop where they have interactive discussions, the marketing team has as well. The several other, specialized area within the system has a close connection where, that interaction can take place. Then, very importantly, I think I will put this on the table of HR. HR need to do a lot more, right? Rather than module learning and development with some other functions, right? I think we need to separate it clearly so that we create very holistic approach to addressing learning issues within the organization. So that network.
Thank you very. Okay, thank you very much, Sadintuji, for that. So I'll go back to Jumoke. While you were speaking earlier, you had mentioned the 70-20-10. So how can organizations support informal and experiential learning as part of their overall learning culture? Of course, we have the structured, you go for the program, you do all of that, but how can organizations, support informal and experiential learning? You're smiling. You have a very practical example.
This is something that I think I have discussed on several different occasions and come away with several different views. So it's a deeply polarizing question for quite a lot of people, and I'll tell you why. But first, let me answer your question. To create or to support that type of setting or that type of learning, an organization needs to be social in itself. So what that means is that even though there's a lot of hierarchy and there's the grade levels and all that, you need to create room for social interactions. And I really like how Adetunji had put it to say that beyond your HR WhatsApp group, how many of you are on any other WhatsApp group for your company? So we start with things like knowledge sharing sessions where a lot of the expertise you need to grow your business, you have in-house. But because nobody is talking about it, most people have knowledge that they have not shared. I've seen people sit in meetings, critical meetings, and everybody is talking about, how do we solve this problem? And then the least expected person comes up with a brilliant idea. And you're wondering, where were you? Where have you been all our lives? You are the one we've been waiting for. So create opportunities for knowledge sharing. Entrench that in your system, and you will see how dramatically your organization can change. Because again, context is, I keep saying best practice is only best practice when it's what is best for your business. And so if you understand the organizational context, then whatever it is you've learned from outside, you can put it into that context and save everybody a lot of time by sharing that knowledge. So knowledge sharing sessions, very, very important. And then knowledge management systems as well, so that all that institutional knowledge that has been gained does not get filtered out once the person leaves the organization. But to come to the informal learning, we need to encourage social interactions. We need to fund membership of professional groups. Organizations need to be able to sponsor and support team members when you're going for CIPM. For me, I'm in HR. CIPM programs, my organization sponsors it. Because they know the importance of networking, learning, understanding what's going on, what are the trends in my sector. So in whatever sector you're in, what associations do you belong to? I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups, and those updates have even helped me shape the way that I advise in terms of strategic management of staff. Because again, these people are lobbying the federal government. So a good portion of time, they know policies before they come out. So you're able to get insights. So it makes you even look more proactive because you already know what's going to come. You're already putting things in place. So by the time it's announced by the federal government, people are wondering, how did you know? So as an individual, it's important for you. If you're not in any group, please join a professional group. It's very important. And then it's important for organizations to fund that as well. And then in the informal learning space as well, beyond the KSS, that's knowledge sharing sessions, beyond funding professional groups, as an organization, you also need to support people when they say that they need time to do these things. Yes, I know business managers are looking at me and just saying, how do we give them more time? We're already giving them a lot of time. But when you begin to show interest in my growth as an individual, I have realized that people will go above and beyond the terms of their contract. But if we stick to the letter of the law, they will treat your work with the letter of the law. I've worked with a lot of people who say, my job ends at 5, I'm sorry. I'm not going to have a conversation with you until tomorrow morning. While it's important for work-life balance, we all need to carry that idea of the work is not done until it's done. But the only way you can move from a contractual arrangement to a more covenantal arrangement is to show interest in my development as a person. So I think using those 3 tools, knowledge sharing, important, social or professional organizations, even outside your workplace, join 1 or 2. I'm not saying join 5 and 10 and then be going every other week. And then also, show interest in individuals and give them time to actualize all these things. And we'll have a better work environment.
All right, thank you very
Julia,
much.
can I chip into that? Thank you very much. I think it's an important topic, and it connects the last 2 conversations about the informal and, of course, the learning culture. And I think that the higher you go in an organization, the less certain things become obvious to you. So if I'm having a party in my organization now, once I show up, the party ends, because I'm not considered to be part of the fun social network. So yeah. So what I've learned is that I'm invited to speak at an HR conference, and I see my people that are not animated, dancing, jumping. So what is the difference between how they respond when they're at work and how they respond there? So I think the key thing, we've said a lot about formal learning. It's important, it's structured, it's focused, it can be measured. But it is expensive and it requires conscious sustenance. Informal learning takes a life of its own. If you can find the right social network, and it exists in every organization, is just to let it thrive and to enable and support it. So if you look at it, there are groups that exist there already. They make it fun. It can't be as structured as but it will take a life of its own, but ensure that you continue to refocus it as the business and support it. So, but it does exist there. So it's now how do we move all those things that happen in those HR conferences back into our offices, those other conferences, and make it as much fun. Let them dance, let them listen to music, let them dress informally if they have to, but learning must occur at the end of the day. So I think it's about taking the paradigm of the formal, which we are trying to enforce on the informal, which is the challenge, and make the people drive their own agenda.
All right, thank you very much. Would you like to lend your voice to that? Okay. All right, so this is a very interesting one. I think it's something that we'll all be interested in. And I think I'm going to like to get everybody's perspective on this. So how can organizations measure the effectiveness of their learning and development initiatives? We had looked at the Kirkpatrick's model earlier. And how can they also make data-driven decisions for continuous improvement? So I'll take that again. How can organizations measure the effectiveness of their learning and development initiatives? Year after year, we have organizations burn budget on learning, but how do we measure? How do we know that, we're not just ticking the box, right? And make data-driven decisions for continuous improvement. I would love to start with Mr. Adetunji, and then I'll go to Mr. Folushu and Jumoke.
Okay, I think when we are talking about measurement, you must be data-driven, right? So you're looking at metrics. What are the metrics you must put in place to ensure your learning program or initiative are very effective in your organization? And I think for me, you should start with a clear, defined goal. So you mentioned learning journey. So what are you supposed to achieve after this? Apart from the formal evaluation method that we all know, there's certain things you expect. Because what we notice also, in practice, is that people just go for training. By the time they come out, they can't translate the learning into the everyday work. So it's very difficult. The disconnect is there. You are, at the end of the day, managers keep saying, "Oh, we are just spending money. You're going for this training and we're not seeing results." So we must be able to establish metrics, critical metrics that will say, okay, so after you have attended this training on this particular topic, this is what you have been able to do, and you should be evaluated based on that. And in our practice, what we do, because we also provide, L&D services for the sector where I operate, is to ensure that we build timelines to accomplishment. To say, okay, so you have attended this program, in 3 months, you should have been able to do this. After 6 months, we check back with the HR to say, so have this person be able to perfect skills in this area? So clear metrics on how to measure whether you are achieving what you are sent to do or not is one way to ensure that you evaluate whether you have not really wasted your resources on that training program. So metrics is very, very important for me. Then, apart from metrics, you will probably have seen improvement, career growth in the individual over time as well, to also measure whether this person has grown. Apart from just moving along the ladder, what experiences, what in the way the person, as you grow through the ranks, in the way you conduct yourself, in the way you approach business decisions, what has changed after you've attended, for instance, you've gone for HR conference, CIPM conference that focuses maybe particularly this year on sustainable development, whatever it is. How do you build sustainability into your work, back at the office? So these are the things that I think are measurable company-wise.
Thank you very much, Adetunji. Mr. Folusho.
Okay, thanks. I think he's picked on one of the core points in terms of having the right metrics. But we need to maybe look at a few other things just to reinforce that. One, when you look at training that is impactful, that you can measure the impact, there are certain things that needs to go into the training itself. So what you train, how you train it, and when you train it are also critical things. So there must be direct connection between what you're training and the business impact, meaning that the starting point is that you must have a baseline. Too often, I see people complete a training and they're asking for ROI. It's too late. If you don't have a baseline at the beginning of the program, it becomes a conversation at the end of the day. So there has to be a deliberate design. Now, the search for that you have to justify impact at the beginning means that you're not picking too many things. I think organizations spread their efforts on too many trainings that have very, very little impact on the business. So it means that it's not the number of trainings that I run on my budget that determines how effective I am as an L&D function, but the impact of each of those initiatives on the business line. So the starting point is you need to have sponsors for all your programs, and the sponsors must come from the business line. And there must be an acknowledgement by the sponsors that they have a problem and that this intervention, this is the outcome that they want to see. You design, get their sign-in on the program, you agree on the matrix, so that then you also identify their own commitment to learning transfer and allowing people to apply those skills. We take too much responsibility for design, delivery, and measurement of training in L&D, and it can't happen in only your unit. It's part of a talent management system, so the whole HR unit has to be involved. Then the line manager that owns the employee must also be involved with the process. So just to summarize that, you need to run the right programs that are business impacting. You need to do them at the right time, close to when those skills can be applied. If you train me 30 days, I don't use the skills, you've lost 80% of what you've transferred. So at the right time, then it must be done the right way. Many training programs are not designed with learning transfer in mind. They are very theory-based, academic, and too little practice sessions. So the design of the program itself, where you are creating a close to or realistic context of what they will be confronting to solve the problem, bringing in case studies and examples that are similar, so they are thinking of the problem before they get back to work, and time to act is a lot easier. Then, of course, the support of the line manager, all those things will make it a lot easier to design and see impact on the programs that we run.
All right, thank you very much. I'll have, Jumoke, I'm still going to take your opinion on that. So I'll ask one more question and then I'll throw it open to the audience. So please, if you have questions, you can just note it down. We're coming for you. Thank you. So Jumoke, what's your take?
Okay, what do I say after two brilliant answers? I will say that I agree. But I think one more thing that I'd like to add would be that businesses and business managers and HR and L&D professionals need to be realistic about timelines. In terms of, you want someone to develop a particular competence, then you set up one training, and you expect that at the end of that one training, that took 3 days, that this person will become an expert in that particular competence. Miracle no dey tire Jesus, but really. So it's important that you realize that learning and development is a systematic approach. So we need to first be realistic on the timelines. How much time does this person need to learn? How consistently, because there's something called a learning loop, where you learn, you relearn, and you practice what you've learned, and then you have time to evaluate, monitor your progress, and then if need be, augment that learning. So how much training, how much time is required for the person to go from a novice to an expert that you require them to be? And then the second side will be the measurement side, to say, the simplest metric or factor you can use is staff to return or staff to revenue, your staff to revenue ratio. And then if that is too basic, because of course some people will underperform and some people will overperform, then throw in the performance management system or the performance rating for that particular period, and then use it as a percentage to gauge who has improved and who is doing worse.
Okay.
That gives you a kind of vague or tentative idea of the return on investment for your learning and development.
All right, thank you very much. We just appreciate our panelists. So I would ask Mr. Ditunji, how can you tell that an organization has an effective learning culture in place? What's the pulse? What are the signs? What are the indicators that reflect that, yes, this organization has a learning culture?
Okay, I think first for me would be that it's very, very glaring because learning will permeate the entire organization. Felicia mentioned from the CEO to the very least are seen, to be engrossed with learning. I think for our first speaker that mentioned that you need to have a sponsor at the top, because I just read the statistics this morning from Intuition that said 96% of the C-suite executives agree that learning can contribute to about 80% growth in their revenue. But why are they not doing it? Where's the disconnect? If you identify this is a problem, why are we not fixing it? Now, so it must permeate the entire organization, like I said, from the board, to the floor. Guys must know that learning is part of this institution. Clearly define learning program for the directors, for management staff, for everybody. The MD is going on the training, the senior managers are going on the training. When I want to work in an organization where there's a compulsory module that everybody must pass, whether you're coming as an ET or an executive director, CGP, you must pass that CPG. If you don't pass it, you are not getting employed in that institution. And you must pass at 70%. So everybody passes, whether you are coming as an executive director. I've had 25 years of banking experience here. No. It's a coming, that's our culture. Everybody passes it. Even the MD tells you to tell about 500 staff that I passed the CPG myself. So everybody must pass it. So if it is very clear within the organization that everybody must know these things, then we show that this is a learning organization, right? Just a funny way to put it, I remember a story that was told about a machinery that broke down, and they called very highly trained engineer to come and fix, and they looked through, they couldn't identify the problem. They called the roadside mechanic, and the guy just went there and looked at it, and he just took his spanner and knocked a particular part of the engine, and instead they should start it, and the engine started working. They said, "Oh, how come you did it?" He said, "We've been trying to do this thing." He said, "So how should we pay you?" They said, "You should pay me this amount." I said, "How do we pay you that amount?" He said, "You see, experience, you can never pick it in schools. You must learn through the rope to know this experience. So you can never quantify what experience can do for you."
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Folusho, very briefly, how can you tell when an organization has an effective learning culture in place? Very briefly.
So, in addition to what Mr. Adesina has said, I think there are certain things. The purpose of learning is to drive adaptation and ability to respond quickly to new trends, new technology. So that itself is one of the outcomes where people can quickly unlearn and learn new things and adapt quickly. So the speed of adaptation and response to external environment is one of the signs. Leadership involvement, as I said, is a sign. Then general, so I think the key level is the middle managers that you see, what they do with, when they create time deliberately to transfer knowledge to people, they are having meetings, and they're not the ones running the trainings all the time, but they set a schedule, they are there. Then when you have programs, are your leaders showing up? Are they funding it? That all says, to a large extent. Others will say that how much of your budget do you invest in building and developing your people? So there are a lot of ways you can look at it from financial investment, you can look at it from leadership commitment, you can look at it in terms of the outcome and response as well. Then even in terms of people, when you schedule a training or a learning program, do people show up on time? Are they committed? Are they asking questions? Are they taking notes? If I'm in front of the class, I can tell you whether people are interested in learning or they showed up for the lunch and the bags. And because HR said they should come. So it's very clear that there are some signs that could let you know that very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. Jumoke, I won't let this pass you.
You need to stop doing this to me, where brilliant answers come and then you're asking me for my own input after. They've said it all. But I think for me, it will be two more things, although I'd mentioned two things when I started to say where it's okay to say I don't know and where it's okay to say I made a mistake. But then also, I think two more things will be added to that. An organization where they ask why more than they say yes. It means that they are consistently questioning the process. An eternal curiosity is an indicator of a learning culture. So that's one thing that I think I would like to add to this entire conversation.
All right, thank you very much. Please let's jam our hands together. And over to the audience. Do we have people who would like to ask questions? Okay, one. Any other person? 2, 3, and that's it. Sorry. So I'll start off with number 1. Sir, you have the floor. Please go straight to your question.
Okay, thank you. Everybody has been talking about budget against expectation and all that. We have a pattern, and they're expecting HR to have a seat at the table. Even when they know, they try to downplay the place of learning and development. And they will even sell you a dummy. This is the training I want for my staff. They are not even allowing line managers to identify even the result of appraisal, where we have the SWOT analysis to say which area of competence needs improvement. And that is what HR used to drop training for the following year. CEOs will tell you, this is training you want to give production, this is training you should give HSE, this is training you should give.
So straight to the question.
How will they allow going forward HR to strive?
All right. So can you just...
I've said many things.
Yes. So your question, well framed, so that Mr. Fulusho is able to provide the right response.
Align, how can CEO allow the learning and development culture to strive?
Okay. So now, at the end of the day, when you look at any business, the authority sits with the CEO. He's the final accounting officer for the people and the resources. Now, the main challenge is that there's usually a diversity difference in priorities between what the CEO thinks is important and what learning thinks is important. Our job as learning professionals is to align. So, and that's why I like questions. Before you jump, you have a framework. What are you trying to achieve? You need to understand what pressure your CEO is under. What are the big goals he's trying to achieve? Now, he's going to use learning as a tool to achieve those things, even though he doesn't know how to do it. So you start from aligning priorities with the CEO. It's now your job to come back and educate and to show how that can be connected. One tool you can do is to first start with what they call test projects. I can't remember the proper name now. Before we do a full-blown, let's first do the pilot. Let's test it. Let's measure impact. And you can pilot 2 different things and come back and say, we got more impact, A and B. But I think the gap is that we always lack alignment with the executives. We need to recognize that they have the knife and they have the yam, whether you like it or not. You are just going to help them slice it. So the starting point is, sir, what are your biggest challenges? What are we trying to achieve? How is the business going to win? Now, they will have an idea in terms of outcome, but what they don't know is what must happen from a people and learning perspective to do that, which is where you come in as an expert. But you must take reference from. So the challenge that we normally start with the people question first instead of the business question, and that's what causes that lack of alignment with the executive. So they get frustrated.
Thank you very much.
That we're not on the same.
Thank you. The second person, I think that was
So my question is for Jumoke. Yes. Earlier you said that learning is critical to achieving goals in an organization. So my question is, how do HR include learning and development to skilled and unskilled workers? I work in a construction firm, and it's really a challenge for me. So I want to know how I can incorporate this to achieve the goals of the organization, and especially the fact that prior to my joining the organization, there was nothing like L&D. Nobody's learning. Everybody just do what they like. You weld this, you don't weld that, and all of that. So I want to know exactly what I need to do for the skilled and unskilled workers.
Okay, thank you so much. And it's an interesting question because, it's the bane of a lot of learning and development professionals. Again, when people see learning and development, they think training. And when they think training, they think, oh, we have to be in a classroom, or it has to be a formal setting and all that. But, as we have learned, there is formal and informal education. And being able to curate learning for each sector or each segment of staff that you have is what we need to discuss at this moment. So for the skilled workers, the ones who are maybe computer literate or they have mobile phones or all that, it's easier to implement because, there are those trainings that are available, those are cheaper and all that. For the unskilled, although I think it's very highly skilled, I think they are misclassified. Maybe uneducated per se, but very highly skilled.
So I have a staff that cannot even read ABC to Z.
Oh, that's fine.
It's a concern for me.
They are the ones I'm speaking about now.
Okay, that's fine.
So, again, what is communication? It is when you're able to receive information, interpret it in the appropriate way, and then give feedback based on what you've received. And so it doesn't take a formal classroom education to be able to do that. A good portion of them are probably more skilled at what they do than, So what we're saying now is redefine learning for them. It could be a simple demonstration. Oga, we dey site. We want mold block. Oh yeah, 2 shovel, cement, 3 shovel, sand, 1 paint bucket, water. We mix them, put them inside mold, match them, we don't finish. So you see, it's learning and it's knowledge transfer, but it's not in the way that you're used to it. But that's okay as long as knowledge is transferred. So we need to rethink the way we talk about learning and development and say for these maybe low education but highly skilled workers, how do we ensure that knowledge is transferred? And so we can take the conversation again offline because of time.
All right, thank you.
But yeah, that's what I will advise.
Sorry, I don't know if I can just add the perspective. Yes, what is very important, the reason why we are is to rethink learning. So it may not be the straight jacket formal approach that you're used to. And I can tell you in confidence, 2 weeks ago we were in Cologne. We were having a bilateral meeting with Institute of Development in Cologne. And at the backside of that was the meeting with the Executive Secretary of Nigeria Board of Technical Education in Abuja. And the guy was telling us, now they are going through the back door to influence Nigeria University Commission policies for university education and polytechnic to recognize prior learning. People that you consider on skills, it's because we have certificates. Some of us have certificates, we can really not do anything. So they are going through the back door now to change the policies of government to ensure that prior learning out in advanced country, that's what we call dual vocational training. You are learn the skills on the street, but you can perform well more than somebody that is sitting in the office. Right? So this recognition of prior learning is also very important. And this is the perspective that Jumoke is bringing in here now. If you have those kind of people, recognize that they may not be certificated, but they can do quality job if you put them through normal guidance. And that's important for us in this context.
All right, thank you. The last person, I think it was over there. Please, can we get a mic? Please go straight to your question. We have less than 3 minutes on this stage.
So my question is almost tied to her last question, and I wanted to talk about how organizations are very specific about learning style. So why I'm saying this, I'm the e-learning manager at Live Africa, and we got to understand that sometimes when you throw out trainings, and when you were talking about people coming back and they are not able to disseminate what they've gone through in the training, is because the learning style wasn't very effective. People learn differently, and that's why I always like using this as an example. I like using the Bible as an example. The Bible has different versions of of the Bible, and people understand King James and the likes and all that. So now this now goes to the top heads of organization. Do you really consider learning styles? I know Jumoke talked about how she plays games. I learned a lot from playing games. I mean, I learned about World War II by playing Pearl Harbor, and that's very, very important. So I think top executive managers and CEOs and the likes have to understand that there's a learning style, and we must understand that we must bring that context to Africa itself, because we've been brought up to understand how we can learn from foreign companies and stuff like that. So I want to know whether you guys consider learning style when it comes to trainings. Yeah.
And that question is directed at. We can't take the entire panel, so I think I'll just have.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So yes, the truth is that you need to be able to offer a variety of learning styles for any program. But if you analyze your target audience, you can tilt towards one or the other. So I found out that people that are a bit older like more formal, more structured learning. They don't mind reading 20-page business case and co. Once you start getting to people that are in their early 20s, they like more media, video, written, more classroom engagement, interaction, hands-on display. When you have a class and you put in an activity for people that are 50 and above, many of them don't get off their chair. That's not how they have experienced learning. So, yes, you must look at the audience, you must look at their background, you must look at and try and blend it. But the challenge is that you can sometimes have a class where there's a variety of preferential learning styles, meaning that somebody may be sacrificed for the other. So you can do the analysis to see whether you have people that are more action-oriented, people that are more reflective in terms of their learning, design your programs that way. And I think you should, as a professional, not be stuck into a particular mode.
Thank you very much. Please let's jam our hands together for our panelists. I do wish we had more time, but our time is already fast spent. So on a final note, I will just give 30 seconds, a closing remark from each panel. And I'll start off with Jumoke this time around.
Like, give me time to even think. Okay.
Very quickly, 30 seconds.
So here's what I think. Learning and development is evolving. It's a journey. You need to curate per person. Like you said, we have different learning styles. So gamification is big these days. And it's not just in learning, it's in most parts of the organizational process. So adopt it. It won't kill you. And then another thing is stay eternally curious. Be curious about everything, from the simple things to the big things. Ask why, ask what, ask how, when, where. And you will see that there's a whole world out there that you might not necessarily understand already. So learning is a lifelong goal.
Thank you.
Let's try to achieve it.
All right, Mr. Ditunji, 30 seconds, quickly.
Yeah, thank you. I will differ a bit, and I will say this is the beginning of another revolution we'll see in the learning and development space. Kudos to Demola and the team, and I'd like to charge each and every one of us, as we go back to our different organizations, we should begin to have a rethink about how we can detach the L&D function from the core HR, because I know you are suppressed at the moment, right? Let's detach it and begin to address it frontally. Make business case, like Felicia has said. If you're having clashes with your executive, do a proper business case for your learning to thrive. Tie learning outcome to profitability of the business. No manager, you can't bring a proposal to me that, okay, you're 100 million, I can help you achieve 200 million by year end. I will give you whatever support you need. So please, let's make business case for learning.
Thank you very much. And the last but definitely not the least, from Mr. Felicia.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by thanking the audience and the organizers, particularly Demola. With respect to my final thoughts, I think that we need to keep up with the trends in learning and development. One of the key things that excite me, which also keys to the question, is adaptive and personalized learning, where 2-3 people take the same course, but their paths are different based on what they know and what they need to learn. And with AI and technology, a lot of that is possible now. Then, of course, I think the starting point of being effective is understanding your business. Going back and really understanding your business, what the business is trying to do, what differentiates your business and your brand, what capabilities your business needs to win, and now identifying the knowledge-based components and the gaps that exist so that you can focus your training specifically on that. Also, don't try and do everything alone. Partner with line managers, partner with the business, carry them along, get their input. Test some of your ideas with them before you push it out to get their input. Then be a lot more strategic. Too often we focus on learning administration, not learning and performance. So we may also need to step back a bit and look at how effective we are, how much we understand the learning function, and refocus our efforts on really impacting the business so that we can lay a claim, on that being a real partner to the business as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we've come